tries to throw you in a can. What? You're gonna want a shotgun. Oh. What? An automatic rifle. And a lot of ammo. A gun? Yeah, a gun.
We're all set to riot. Buy a gun. Before you lose your Second Amendment. Buy a gun. They'll burn you out like a Waco. They'll stick your ass in a camp. Check for the cops in riot gear. Gonna kick your ass and laugh. The revolution is on its way. Better lock and load your AK. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. We're all set to riot. Buy a gun. Before you lose your Second Amendment. Buy a gun. They gave no money to the banksters. They stole your pension funds. It's time that we took to the streets. It's time we had our turn. A revolution is on its way, and the founding fathers would say, buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. You gotta riot in the streets. Revolution's not clean and neat. You gotta riot in the streets. Revolution's not clean and neat. You gotta do it through the streets.
Gentlemen, boys and girls, it is Tuesday. We are live. This is PrimerTime on UCY.tv. My name is Michael, and I'm in the basket of deplorables. Unfortunately, Nick is off tonight on special assignment for Uncle Sam and his glory, or for his wife or something. I don't remember. But Nick couldn't make it tonight. In fact, I kind of am bummed that Nick couldn't be here tonight, because I went to a gun show this weekend, and actually worked a gun show, and like to walk around and kind of see what's going on at the show and everything. And I happened to run into a very interesting guy with a very interesting product, and something that is kind of along the lines of our listening audience here for this show, and for basically for the whole network. Sort of totally fits in with this high-tech society today. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Alan Morgan of Innovum. Alan, welcome.
Thanks, Michael. I appreciate it. Thanks for the invite.
Man, I'll tell you what. Let's just go with this real quick. Alan runs a 3D printing service, and I happened to walk by your table, and I was very excited by it, because I think this is kind of opening the door to the future. You had a few firearms-related items available at this show, and but more importantly, you kind of have an eye to the future and an eye to accommodating everybody. So I'd like for you to tell us what you do.
Okay. Innovium. We're a rapid prototyping company. We try to cater to individuals and corporate clients alike. We're trying to get to the point where we'd have the tooling to where we could pretty much make anything for anybody. We do like all the other 3D printing companies out there, where if you have an idea that you want made, we can definitely design it for you, get you your 3D model, and we can print it for you and give you something tangible. If you already have a file, or you download one off the internet, there's a website called Thingiverse that has pretty much everything under the sun. And you can just download them, send them to a 3D printer, and make whatever you want. And we can provide the printing service for anyone who has a file. But that's what everybody does. What we want to do, what sets us apart in the industry, is we recognize everybody's got ideas. And a lot of them are good ideas. But most people don't know how to get that idea out of their head and into some type of tangible form. And that's where we want to step in and bridge that gap. It usually happens, you're probably aware, Michael, whenever you're working in the garage or in the yard, and you hit that point where you think, man, if I just had something that could do this, I'd be set. Well, chances are, if they need it, somebody else probably does too. So the service that we offer is, if they come to us with that idea, we have all the intellectual property legal paperwork in place that they can sign before we ever see their idea that states that it's their idea. We don't take ownership of it. We're not going to keep it. It's theirs. It's like a IP license. We're basically, with their permission, going to help them on their behalf. We'll do all the design work. We'll do all the manufacturing. We'll do all the packaging, the labeling, the shipping. We'll sell it online. We'll sell it offline. We'll interface with the customers. If they want returns or have issues, we'll handle that. By the end of every month, the person who sent us the idea gets a royalty check, and they get paid just for having the idea. Because why should someone get penalized and get charged money for having an idea? Seems counterintuitive. So we figured we'd turn the tables on it, let people get paid for their ideas. And we're trying to make that the backbone of what we offer to individuals and corporate customers alike.
Well, I'll tell you, I walked by the table, I saw it, it grabbed me. The fact that you can bring people's ideas to life for them and help them, if need be, expand with that product, that just really blows my mind. Now, I'm very interested in the 3D printing field. To me, it's nearly like the Star Trek replicator. Unfortunately, I am completely uneducated in it, other than the fact that I know that the machines are somewhere in the $1,000 range. You know, you need to have a computer or a laptop or something that interfaces with it. Other than that, I'm not too sure how it works. Do you mind telling us how 3D printing works and how you kind of got into it?
Sure. There's several types of different 3D printing or additive manufacturing technologies. There's some that use liquid resin. There'll be lasers that shoot onto that liquid resin, and it'll drop, and then another laser will shoot on top, and it hardens that resin layer by layer until you have a solid, tangible item. Those machines that we're using, they require filament, which is a reel of plastic wire, if you will, that runs through a nozzle. I guess the easiest way to imagine it is imagine a hot glue gun. And you put the stick of hot glue in the back, and it gets melted and comes out the front nozzle. Same exact application here, except that head, that nozzle, can move up and down, left and right, and it squirts that plastic out onto a table. So if we were to take any object, let's say a cube, and we take that cube, we'd run it through a program called a slicer. And that program would slice that cube into thousands of slices that are two-dimensional. So when you look at it, you just have a square, a flat square. And that nozzle would squirt that melted plastic onto this table into that flat square. And then it would drop down to the level of the next slice and print another square on top. And it would keep printing that until you had the 3D cube. And that's I guess, kind of a simplistic way to picture how it operates.
All right.
They do.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Please.
They have models that run off computers. They have some that run off memory cards. If you don't have a computer actually attached to it, you can run it through USB connections, or you can network them and have one computer run multiple machines. There's a lot of different ways you can interface with them.
Okay, so let's say I have an object I need replicated, and I have the physical object, but I don't have any sort of way to, to get its measurements, or it's too intricate for me to get the measurements. So do you have like a scanner or something that you could put this into, and say perhaps it laser scans the outside, all around 360, and makes an image of that, or are those available?
They are available. There's a bunch of different models, that can reach different resolutions. We do have a 3D scanner here. Ours is handheld. It's portable. So if we had to go on location to actually talk with a client there, we could scan whatever it is they wanted scanned, and it'll give us an instant 3D model rather than having to do it old school and, actually build it in some type of 3D modeling or CAD software. The latest project I had is I scanned my daughter, and I can 3D print a little action figure of her now if I wanted.
That's really neat. That's really kind of cool.
What I'm thinking about doing, and if my kids listen to the show, I guess it'll ruin the surprise, but it'll still be fun. I have a 5-year-old son and a 9-year-old daughter, and once I was able to successfully 3D scan her, I thought it'd be really cool to scan both of them and then taper, the bottom into a paddle, and then make a his team versus her team foosball table.
Yeah, okay, that's like Dad of the Year award stuff. Seriously, that'll get you onto the Oprah show if you do that.
It depends. They're both very competitive. It might cause more, drama between the kids. But it'd be fun anyway.
I think that's a really cool idea. Wow, that kind of like threw me off right there. I wasn't expecting something so cool like that. At the show, you had an AR-15 handguard sitting on the table, and it was one of the slant model handguards, or foregrip, I should say, and very similar to, I think Magpul makes one very similar to that. How long did something like that take to make?
Something like that would probably take, I'd say, in the range of about 7 to 9 hours. Yeah, it all depends on whenever you build the 3D model. There's lots of parameters you can adjust in order to affect the print. You can decide how thick you want the internals of it to be, your infill. You can have it real light where it's almost hollow, or you can have it 100% solid. Obviously, that takes more time. So there's kind of a balancing act to see how strong do you want it versus how light you want it versus how much time you want it to take to print.
Okay, now let me ask you, in something like that Picatinny, that handguard that fits on a Picatinny rail, do you already have like the specifications for the part that interfaces with the rail already sort of pre-programmed, and then you can kind of like build in CAD off of that to get whatever kind of desired shape you want or design you want? Or do you build it new each time?
That one, I think that one we actually downloaded. So that was someone else's drawing that they had drawn and put up to let everyone else use, and so we borrowed that one. We can do it both ways on whether or not somebody wanted something custom, or if they wanted something, they were going to have connecting in the same area and we're going to reuse that connecting point. We can definitely template that out and do connections. On some of our other product lines, that's what we do. Well,
I'll tell you what,
it's going to be the same, leave it.
I'll tell you, we just got a question out of the chat. It comes from listener Hopper, and he wants to know, can you theoretically make a chainmail shower curtain?
Chainmail shower curtain. Right offhand, I would say that is possible. I'd have to look at the intricacies. The limitation you would have would be on build area. Now, I do know we have 3D printed chain links before that actually come out connected already. We'd have to figure out, we could make sections of chainmail, and we'd have to figure out what would be the best way to connect those to make a curtain. But definitely it is doable.
It's not a hopeless idea.
Correct.
Yeah, I think that's the magic of this. It's anything that you can think of can almost be done with this. Almost everything can be done with this. And it gives hope to pretty much everybody. I mean, we discussed this earlier. I mean, we saw basically my interest in 3D printing was piqued with Cody Wilson and the Liberator pistol, which was one of the, I guess, the first 3D printed firearm. And it caused a great, huge debate in this nation as to, well, should we ban the 3D printer? Should we ban the 3D printing of handguns? Should we ban the idea of ideas? Should we ban innovation? And that really got me thinking, and that's mainly where my interest in the 3D printing world began. Now you've got the AR-15 parts, and we sort of discussed earlier about the actual printing of, like receivers or functional firearm parts. And there's sort of kind of a gray area. You kind of want to go over that?
Sure. you got two camps. You got some people that are gung ho. Let's print everything we can, build it, see how it works, and just enjoy it. And then you got other groups that are kind of scared and skittish about, well, will we get in trouble if we print this or not print that? And right now, there's not a lot of regulation on what you can print and what you can't print. And it seems like there's a large group of people in the middle who, I guess like me, are trying to build their livelihood around innovation in 3D printing. And we're not opposed to printing anything for the most part. And, here at Innovium, we say we'll always do everything we can to try and make your idea come to fruition before we'll give up and say we can't. As far as functioning gun parts, it's definitely doable, depending on what polymers you use and if you go with exotic filaments and stuff like that. The concern is, because there's not a lot of regulation, if we print, I guess the best way to put it is if we were to print irresponsibly, and I'm not saying what you print would necessarily be irresponsible, but maybe who you print it for. If you have someone who looks kind of shady and hey, I can't get a gun anywhere else, can you 3D print me one? We all recognize it only takes probably one person to take a 3D printed gun and do something stupid, and then all of us in the industry may be under a huge curtain of regulation. And right now we kind of enjoy working free.
Well, and we've already seen certain media outlets do that. I believe it was either The Guardian or I think it was The Guardian and the Sydney Morning Herald out of Australia. They both made experiments where they actually 3D printed the Liberator and snuck them into public areas that were, gun-free zones in Europe. And I don't see that as illustrating the threat. I see that as creating hype. Just to be honest, those were single-shot weapons.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, not necessarily effective, for any sort of real use. So I really felt that to be almost a slap in the face of the industry or of this booming industry and a kind of like a smiting of innovation and free thought.
Right. Yeah, and I agree where I love ideas. That's the whole business I'm in, is ideas. I love to see what people come up with and how people think differently around obstacles and ideas. So I'm never going to say that there's necessarily a bad or wrong idea, but I would just say in some areas where there could be probably more fallout than you would want, I would tell everyone just be smart. Not necessarily do or don't, just be smart.
That goes with everything. That's something
Right.
we try to push here on this show. Is the being smart and being safe. And while we got a chance and we're on it, let's cover the 4 rules of firearm safety real quick. And I hate to kind of interrupt you, but let's just cover that while we got it. So I don't forget at some point. So the first rule of firearm safety is every gun and every firearm is loaded until you visually and physically inspect and ensure that it is not loaded. Rule number 2 is keep the muzzle pointed in a safe direction. Do not cover anything you do not wish to destroy. Rule number 3, know what your target is, know what's beyond your target at all times. And rule number 4, the most important rule, keep the booger hook off the bang switch until you are ready to discharge the weapon. No accidents, no negligent discharges happen until your finger touches that trigger. So be safe, people. Maybe we could invent some kind of booger hook and bang switch sign out of 3D. That'd be out of 3D plastic. That'd be kind of nice. I get tired of hearing. I get tired of hearing about negligent discharges like that. It really gives all of us a bad name and gives the forces against my beloved sport and my beloved Second Amendment right. It gives them ammo. So I try to push that as often as I can. But anyways, back to the 3D printing. Some of the things that really grabbed me was your ideas about innovation and your acceptance of other people's ideas and your willingness to work with them. Can you give us an idea that somebody has come up to you with that you've ran with and you said, man, this is cool?
Sure. We've had several. We had a gentleman who ran across us at another gun show, and he used the service and submitted an idea where he does a lot of hog hunting. And he says the biggest problem that he and his fellow hunters have when they're hog hunting is after they've, got their hog, they want to take a picture with the hog. And they don't like having to find sticks or rocks or whatever to put in the mouth to hold the mouth open in order to see the teeth. So he wanted something similar to what a dentist would use to put in your mouth to hold your jaw open. So we've actually 3D printed up several prototypes for him to send to him to see how they function, if he wants changes made, and if he likes the way that they operate and work. We'll offload those for sale for anyone who wants to use those. That way they can hold the mouth of their kill open for their pictures without having to have a rock or stick in the picture.
That's actually a genius idea. I can see it, the hog bite block.
There you go. Maybe we'll coin that phrase.
All right, I'm in for the royalties on this one.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun what we're able to do. We've got plenty of 3D printers. We have a dozen of them, but we're trying to expand our capabilities. 3D printing is great for prototyping. It does take a lot of time as to print. So whenever we move things into mass production, we've invested in an injection molding machine. The cool thing about that is injection molding is much, much faster than 3D printing. But once we 3D print an object and our client is satisfied with that object, we can go into the software and reverse it. And depending on what polymers we're using, once we reverse it, build our box around it, slice it in half, we now have a mold. We can 3D print a mold that we can injection mold into and make the exact same item in seconds.
And by the thousands. That's beautiful. All right, so let me ask you kind of a strange question here, and this is kind of having to do with the price of rice in China. But what kind of electricity bill would 12 printers running cost? Does a 3D printer suck a lot of power? I would almost imagine that it does, just due to the fact that it uses heat.
It does use more power than, say, your computer, but not really that much. Now, to be honest, on the amount that we pay in electricity, I'm really not sure. We've been very fortunate that we were picked up here at the Coastal Bend Innovation Center, which is an arm of the business department of Texas A&M Corpus Christi, which this facility is an incubator for startup businesses. And we were able to rent space from them, and the electricity is included, which has been a blessing for us.
That's really nice. Have you seen any sort of educational opportunity, say, at the university level or at the community college level or even at high school levels delving into this? Any other formal education opportunities?
We are seeing that start to pick up, yes. We've actually been talking with Texas A&M Corpus Christi out here, who they're interested in building a maker space themselves to have a room with printers for their students to be able to use to get them familiar with the process and all the software needed to integrate between the computer and the printers. So there is some exposure out there for the next generation of professionals coming out of the university.
Well, I'll tell you, I think this is really it's the mark of the future, and I've been checking through the chat, and honestly, that 3D shower curtain or the 3D chainmail shower curtain wasn't actually any kind of joke. The guy who asked it is he remodels. He's a custom home builder and pretty much a craftsman, and he's currently working on a custom house for somebody, and I think that's exactly what he was looking for. I have put your website into the chat. If you'd like to give your website out on air, I'd love for you to do that.
Sure. It's www.innovium.com. That's INNOVIUM.com. vaum.com. You can also find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Innovium.
Awesome. For everybody out there using Facebook, unfortunately, I don't use Facebook anymore. But it's along the lines of how the future is moving and where the media is headed, and basically where the flow of information is at. So kind of have to have a presence there, whether or not you like it or not.
Well, I'm like you, Michael. I killed my personal Facebook page because I wasn't doing anything with it, and I wasn't really interested in seeing who was buying what at the grocery store. So I just killed it. I was tired of getting ads, but I was told I needed one for the business, so I hired a marketing firm to set that up for me and keep track of that.
Well, it does seem that a lot of information is shared through Facebook. A lot of information is shared through Reddit and through Twitter. So yeah, I mean, you have to keep just as this is an innovation in technology, you have to keep track with the innovations in communications. Have you received any sort of demonization or had any sort of angry interaction with people regarding your 3D printing activities, with, say, an eye to potential anything that they maybe look at it as witchcraft or something like that?
No, we haven't had any like that. The closest thing we've had is when we first started printing, there were some concerns that were brought up about the potential health risks or hazards that could come out of 3D printing by heating up and melting these various polymers, as far as if they outgas any type of harmful chemicals or vapors into the air. And that's actually been going around for a while. There haven't really been a whole lot of concrete studies on the effects of 3D printing. And the people who raise those concerns, to them, they're valid concerns because there's no information. No one was mean or ugly about it, and they still thought 3D printing was really cool. They just wanted to know if there was any data on it. So in order to make sure that everyone was happy, we ended up moving our printers into an industrial location, and we're actually working right now with NIOSH. That's what the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health. And we've been talking with them, and they're going to come out, and we volunteered to let them run sniffer machines in our print room so that we can get a definite, definitive answer on actually what does outgas or what type of vapors do come off during the 3D printing process. That way we'll know for sure. Because I definitely don't want to put my employees in a potential health hazard. So we're going to find out once and for all. And if there is an issue, we'll get whatever protective equipment we need to get, make sure our guys are safe. And if need be, we'll share that information with whoever wants it and try and be one of the industry leaders for keeping 3D printing safe and affordable for everyone.
Well, I'm gonna definitely say you're the leader right now, because honestly, you're the first guy I've heard of doing this, and I think it's probably one of the greatest ideas I've seen in a long time. Let me ask you: you had a chance to visit this show, and this was the Saxon produced gun show in at the Robstown Convention Center. What is that? The Robstown Fairgrounds and Convention Center, and you've done other shows in other cities in the general South Texas area. This show, compared to other shows, what was your general impression of it?
Well, first off, I love going to gun shows, period. It's one of my hobbies as well. And Saxon always puts on a great show. I did notice that I don't know if the economy has been affected, but it seems like there either weren't as many people, customers, as I'm used to seeing, or maybe not as many people interacting as much and spending as much money. But still enjoyed running around and talking with the other vendors and seeing what fun little toys they had.
Did you see anything that grabbed your eye?
Oh, for sure. We a a friend of mine, his name's Juan Mendoza. He actually owns Maverick Sporting Goods over in Eagle Pass, and I see him at every show. And he's got real good deals on all of his weapons. So I decided to bite the bullet, and I picked up a Cricket 22 rifle for my son. I'm going to give him that on his birthday. I guess I can't let him listen to this show until his birthday.
Until his birthday. Well, happy birthday, son. I hope you enjoy your rifle. Now, the Cricket is an excellent rifle for kids. It's a single shot bolt action 22 that takes 22 long rifle, shorts, and 22 longs. 22 shorts and CB caps are somewhat hard to find. I don't ever see 22 longs anymore. That's an excellent rifle. It's got many different platforms, and as you have the 3D printing capability, are you going to give the boy a custom stock?
You know, I'll have to leave that up to him. I got it in the Green Forest camo because he likes that. So, yeah, if he does want it changed, we'll definitely do that. And now that you mention it, I may do that for my daughter. My daughter has a Cricket, but this past weekend while we were out at the ranch shooting, I noticed it seemed like she might be outgrowing it just a hair. So I may have to 3D print her an extended stock.
That would be kind of cool. That's what would you figure that the cost of materials and if you can figure in the cost of electricity for, like, say, for a homeowner who was going to do this, what would you figure the cost of that to be just on let's say the materials?
Okay, for a stock you're talking?
Yeah, like the stock, like the extended stock. Let's just say it's the same size as the Cricket stock, with maybe like 2 inches more length of pole.
Okay, but if you're doing the entire stock, you'd have to definitely make it modular and either screw it together or build dovetails or some other type of connecting platform for all the modular pieces to come together. Just because most home use printers they don't have a build table big enough to do the whole stock at once. So you'd have to do it in pieces, which is very doable. A lot of things are done that way. So you'd probably be looking at, between a half dozen to a dozen different files you'd have to print, which would take a little while, probably a week's worth of, tweaking and printing. But the material on it, I imagine, and again, it's hard to say without looking at the infill and all the other parameters that go into it. But I'd imagine worst case scenario, raw material, you'd be hard pressed to get above $40 in raw material. Electricity on a month's worth of usage, that 1 week, I don't think you'd spend more than $5 or $10 on electricity. And again, those are just loose figures. It's a rough guess, a swag, if you will. But I imagine you could produce it for under $50.
That's really cost friendly to the consumer and to the homeowner. Now let me ask you, 3D printing, like you had mentioned, there's different kinds of filaments and whatever. Could you kind of expand on what those are?
Certainly. Most of the 3D printing applications that we do, we use PLA, which is polylactic acid. It's actually a plant or vegetable-based polymer. So it's actually eco-friendly, and it's not petroleum-based. So if you drop it off the boat while you're fishing, you don't really have to worry about it. There are other polymers. We do use some ABS. That one is petroleum-based. But they have what they call exotic filaments. We currently have wood filament, and that's basically almost like wood ground into a powder, if you will, and mixed, usually on an 80-20 ratio, 80% wood to 20% PLA. That way it's still meltable and moldable. They also make metal filaments, which are going to be along the same lines, about an 80-20 or 70-30 split. And we do have some aluminum that we just got, and we're going to start playing with that one. According to the way that these are marketed, once you build what you build, they're supposed to be able to be ground and polished, just like anything else made out of metal. I'll let you know how that turns out.
That's very interesting. Okay, so is the aluminum mixed with polymer as well, or is the aluminum,
Correct.
because aluminum's like it's I don't know, it's got somewhat lower melting point. That's not just pure aluminum. That is mixed with polymer.
Yes, sir. It's still mixed with polymer.
That's pretty cool. Have you any kind of designs on any of the 3D metal printing that's not polymer? A few months back, let's say maybe about a year back, I can't remember the name of the company, but they had a 3D metal printer and they printed an entire 1911, every part, all the frame, the slide, the barrel, everything, and it held up. And they said that machine was somewhere in the $4 million range, and it used an incredible amount of this fine. I don't remember. It might have been some sort of titanium mix or something that this powder was, and basically it was a laser, just like you had mentioned earlier. That was just dropping the dust and melting it, and dropping more dust and melting it, and building it up. And from what I understand, that 1911 fired 1,500 rounds. Is that something that you're looking to expand into?
Sure. I would. I'm always open to more tooling. I would love to get more machines and more tools as our clients need and as we grow. I am aware of the one you're talking about. In fact, there's a company in Louisiana who is looking at investing in some of those machines because they use that to 3D print vehicle chassis and engine blocks. And that's what they're using it for. We would definitely love to get into that at some point. They've come down a little. The ones we've seen are in about the $400,000 to $450,000 range, which is still a little pricey for us at the moment. But we would like to get there. We have this grandiose vision of one day we'd like to have a facility that's 100, 200, 300,000 square feet. And in this facility is all the design work you would need. We'd have all the computer systems. We'd have all the engineers, whatever you would need to design whatever you want. And then we'd have all the tooling to make it. So let's say you wanted to build a car. You could walk in there with nothing, design your own custom car from the wheels up. And then we would have all the material, all the machinery and tooling to build everything on that car. We could turn every screw and bolt. We could injection mold every tire. We could vacuum form every plastic panel, pretty much everything to build that vehicle right then and there without having to order outside material other than raw material. We'll see if we make it there or not.
That is a vision of the future that probably shakes the ruling class to the very core. I love that. I would have you print me up a 1989 Isuzu Trooper. I just happen to like those.
That would be fun. It'd be fun to go in and print up something retro they don't make anymore and then say you have one just because you wanted it.
Wow, just the idea of being able to take the power of production from a corporation like, let's just say Dodge, because I like to pick on Dodge. But you could take away the problems of the Dodge and print your own vehicle that works. That just, wow, that's kind of an eye-opening concept, and I mean, I really hadn't actually kind of thought of that until now.
That's exactly what we're trying to do. With what we've got set up now, we've been able to have a similar type of interface with some of our clients where, let's take injection molding, for example. Years ago, if you wanted something injection molded, you had to go to someone who could create a 3D model of that mold, and that would cost thousands and thousands of dollars. And then you either had to find a company here, most people went to China, to get them to cut the mold. And even at China, at 50% the cost, you're still looking at over $50,000 to get a mold made before you can even start pumping out products that you're probably going to sell for pennies or dollars. So it took a long time to recoup your cost, and the lead time on getting that done from when you decided, I'm going to make this, could be 6 months, a year and a half. And heaven forbid your mold was wrong or you needed to make a change. You'd have to start the whole process over. Here,
and
if a
the
customer,
associated cost with starting over again, the
Exactly.
change factor.
yeah, you don't get a discount just because you want to do it twice. You know, the difference here is if a client comes to us and we sit with them and they have nothing except what's in their head. I have a very talented mechanical engineer. His name's Adam LeBlanc. He's a whiz when it comes to 3D modeling. He's been able to produce everything at almost instantly. You'd sit down with him and say, here's my idea. Draw it on a napkin. It doesn't matter. He'll make a 3D model. When we're talking within a couple of hours, if it's intricate. And then that 3D model goes to the printer. That printer can spit it out. Let's say it's really intricate. 1 or 2 days would be the long end of the scale. If you like it, we can either have that sent off and a mold made, and we can injection mold it, or depending on the polymer, we can 3D print our own mold and injection mold it the next day. So now instead of 6 months, a year and a half, from it being in your head to it being a tangible item is a couple of days. From it being that tangible item into something injection moldable by the hundreds or thousands could be a matter of a week or two.
That's just an incredible savings of time over what it possibly was, and not to mention that you're doing it all in the United States. There's no need to overseas outsource any kind of economic impact. It all stays here in the United States. That's beautiful.
Exactly. We're very proud of the fact that we're able to put a sticker on every box that we send out with every product that we made, that it's proudly made here in the United States by Americans who just want to better themselves and their life. And if you have any issue with the product, we guarantee it forever.
That's not something you see very often anymore. I think people are. I think people may not actually recognize the import of this. It struck me. I mean, as we're having this conversation, my mind is moving 1,000 miles a second, and just thinking of everything that I could possibly need. What could I have done? We've got a couple of ideas right now. What would be some of the more unusual items you've printed for people?
Still there?
Yes, sir. You gotcha? No problem. I was wondering, as you've done this, what are some of the more unusual items you've printed for people, or maybe some of the more memorable items? I mean, I think the hog bite block is pretty cool.
Oh, we've had quite a few, I guess, memorable items. Trying to think what would be, well, for me, the 1911 grips. That's just after my own heart. Let's see, memorable. We've had people come through that wanted like custom figurines. Basically, like the statue of David. We had a guy who really liked the statue of David. However, he wanted his face on the statue of David. That's something that we can do.
Yeah, I would say that is memorable right there.
We haven't printed it for him yet, but that is something that we can do. Now, one of the things that we are working on is, you remember the retro gaming systems like Nintendo, Super Nintendo, all of those?
Right.
Well, I like to play video games whenever I get a little bit of free time, and so does Adam. So we got a Raspberry Pi. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the microcomputers like Raspberry Pi.
I've seen those. They're fairly interesting. I've seen one that was made as an emulator to run some of the old Nintendo games. Exactly.
This little microcomputer is very powerful, and it's only like $40. But they come with USB ports and Ethernet ports, and either a 3.5 or a 4 millimeter jack, depending on what you want to have imported or output, and a DVI output. So you can do a lot with them. So we got one, and we 3D printed a case that actually goes around it that looks like a miniature Super Nintendo. And the cables that connect to it is one for the power and one for the TV and one for your video controller. But it's got everything on there. Super Nintendo, Game Boy, regular Nintendo, all of them. They're all on there.
The one that I saw had something like, I don't know, 5,000 games or something like that on it.
Right. Now we don't actually sell the games or the software because we haven't, procured any of the licensing for that. But we sell the kits to be able to basically house your own Raspberry Pi in those types of enclosures. And we can pretty much print up any type of enclosure you want. I mean, if you want your gaming system to look like a big teddy bear sitting in front of your TV, we can print that up for you, however you want it to look.
I know that people do like to modify the cases to the gaming systems. I have seen that. I've seen that in several people, even here in this little tiny town that I live in. That does seem to be common, but it's usually like limited to people spray paint them. They'll spray paint some sort of design on them or something.
Right.
You're taking it to a whole new level.
Yeah, we'll make it from scratch.
That's just, wow. Let me ask you, what was the very first thing you ever printed?
First thing I ever printed. The first thing I ever printed was a little bitty boat. Looked like a little tugboat. The tugboats, you can download them from online, and they're used to actually assess your printer's capabilities to make sure that your printer's calibrated correctly and everything is aligned just right. And this little tugboat's got all these little features on it that you can assess to make sure that it's printing correctly and make sure nothing's sagging or anything like that. So that was technically the first thing we printed. After that, we printed off a whole bunch of other things. We made square battery holders because we got tired of, you go buy a 32 pack of AA batteries, you take 2 of them out and the rest just fall out and roll around the drawer. So we printed a little cube that holds 16 of them, and they're stackable. Keep them nice and neat. Basically, if we need something, we make it.
That's incredibly handy. Man, that's almost life-changing, to a certain extent. I mean, if you've got it and you can do it, wow. I could totally see the utility of that. I mean, like, honestly, I've got I like Kel-Tec rifles. I think the Kel-Tec rifles are kind of a really interesting design, and as you know, they're polymer rifles. Kel-Tec uses a lot of polymer in their products, and I think Kel-Tec is one of the few companies with any kind of innovation out there. That being said, the rifles have nifty features, but they're lacking in some ways. For example, the 5.56 rifles that they make, the SU-16 series rifles, they're great rifles, yet they lack a way to put a sling on them. And I personally feel like a sling is a necessary item for a firearm, just for a rifle, just like a holster is a necessary item for a handgun. And looking at several different ways, and that's something I've been like researching, is how to mount a sling onto the Kel-Tec. And there's no product out there that's readily available for that. And I'm sure with just a little bit of eyeballs, we could come up with something.
Oh, certainly. Yeah, we can definitely come up with something to do that. Whether you wanted to do either a part replacement and the new part had the attachment point on there, or if you wanted to make something that would in some way, shape, or form connect to your existing hardware and then use that as the attachment point. I mean, we can pretty much do whatever it is you want. I've been thinking about doing something similar. I have a Kel-Tec Sub 2K in 40 cal, and that's a fun little gun to shoot.
Hey, I played with the 9mm, and I find them just awesome in their crudeness.
Yes. And the problem with mine is the front sight is plastic. and it's a soft plastic. And if you run it into something hard enough, you can't really adjust it that much. So same with the rear sight. So I'm going to probably look at replacing my sights with something we make here.
I'd love to see that.
In fact, now that we're talking about it,
I would love to have you on to talk about your new Kiltech front sight replacement product when it's ready to go.
well, hopefully by that point, I mean, now that we're talking about it, I'm thinking I might want to add a Picatinny rail and maybe a scope mount on it too.
You know, that's really kind of the way that the firearms industry is moving. It's kind of like what kind of goodies can you add onto your firearm? So yeah, I think you're right along with that right there. I think that's a winning idea, and and Kiltech is one of those companies. And I mean, I don't mean this to be a Kiltech commercial by any means, but it's one of those companies that is innovative and has a lower price point than many other firearms makers, and its use of polymer is pretty innovative, and the need for certain items to make these firearms a little more comfortable or functional is there, and that's kind of like right up your alley. But let me ask, let's say you have an existing item that is polymer, and is there a way to take and add your 3D printed item to that polymer to mold it or to add it, weld it somehow, maybe 3D print it right on top of there? Is that a possibility?
Well, you can't 3D print on top of it, just by the way the mechanics of the machines work. As far as trying to adhere it, I mean, technically you could melt the two ends and stick them together. Now, trying to get that to look pretty and stock would probably be really hard to achieve. The easiest way to do it would probably be try to find a way, since whatever you're making is 100% customizable however you want it, make it in a way that it can serve its form, fit, and function around your plastic piece by adhering with the natural curvatures and corners of what you're attaching it to itself.
I can see that. Wow. What kind of shaping can you do with some of just the pure polymers? Like you had said that the polymers that were mixed with the metals earlier are supposedly polishable and sandable and grindable. What sort of actions like that can you take with the products that you're making now? What sort of like, not necessarily abuse, but what sort of force will they take?
Well, again, that's going to be determined by the construction method, as far as if we make it hollow or make it solid, what level of infill. More solid is going to be a lot stronger. At the gun show, I'm not sure if you saw, we had a little statue of the thinking man, which seems to be very popular. That one was printed 100% infill, so it was solid. And we can chunk that one all the way down the aisle and let it bounce across the floor a few times, and you're not going to have an issue. Something at a lighter infill level, depending on how you construct it. If you make an arch in and of itself is going to be stronger than something that's straight. So you could reduce your infill in the arch more than you could in the straight piece, and it wouldn't break as easily. But so a lot plays into how strong it is. But the polymers themselves, we have current items that have like a 30% infill, and they're still extremely rigid. And depending on how you use them, they'll last a good long time, take a lot of punishment.
In this market, it's changing rapidly. I remember when the 3D printing craze sort of hit, with the advent of Cody Wilson's firearms. And the price of those machines back then, I think, were $3,000, and now you can buy one at Sam's Club for, I think, $499. How do the lower end models compare to, say, the first 3D printer that you used? And what was the first 3D printer that you used?
Actually, the first 3D printer that I used myself was a FlashForge Creator Pro. And that's a good machine. Never had any issues with that one. We've changed to now the QuityTech, which runs on a similar platform. They're a little bit less expensive, so you can get a lot more of them, but they're easy to work on too. So we've been able to tear them down, put them back together, and for some of the plastic parts that are used on it, we can 3D print our own replacement parts, which makes it a lot easier.
Oh, I would imagine so. I mean, that's the closed circle right there. That's the beauty of the whole thing. Well, I could just see. I mean, just at just say an auto body shop, just even printing out those little plastic rivets that hold in door panels. I mean, those things are a pain in the ass, and you're always breaking them, and then you got to run up to AutoZone and pay $8.99 for a package of like 4 of them or something. Yeah, wow.
Yeah, well, Adam, one of the things that he likes to do is whenever we get to the end of a spool of filament, there may not be enough filament there to complete a whole nother product of whatever it is that's on our current production line. And rather than throwing it away, he comes up with all these cool little ideas as to how can we use this filament. And the latest one, which I thought was funny, is he's coming up with just a little clip to keep a bag of chips closed that has our logo on it. We were going to throw it away anyway. Might as well use it.
I think that's, waste not, want not. I mean, little tiny trinkets like that are really like good ways to get your company out there. I went to the SHOT Show this year, and I will say that I came back with so much stuff, and I could see how a lot of that stuff I came back with could easily have been made by a 3D printer.
Well, if anyone happens to be coming around our table at any of the upcoming gun shows, we're going to have 1911 grips. I printed way too many, and I have a feeling I don't need to try and acquire enough weapons to put them all on. So we'll have extra 1911 grips if anyone needs any.
I'll tell you what, look at some Browning high-power grips, and I'm in the market for those.
Browning high power, we can print you up some.
I love those. I love Browning high powers, and I really like the thin grips and like the thin grips that were like a harder black plastic from like the military issue pistols. I think those are the best. They feel the best in my hand, right next to the old wooden grips, like the ones from the late '60s and the early '70s. I'm not necessarily a fan of like great big like Hogue grips or Pachmeyer grips with like the finger grooves on it. I think the beauty of the high power is you keep it thin, and 3D printed grips for the high power would be perfect.
Well, if you want, you're welcome to shoot me an email with either an image or phrase or whatever you want, and we can emboss that on the side of the grips and have it printed right in for you.
Oh my God, that would be just the best to have, like a pair of high power grips with a PrimerTime logo on them. That would be beautiful.
Oh yeah, that's easily doable. We do a lot of custom stuff for companies, around this area.
That would be great. Yeah. Well, I think we're I think you and I are going to have a fairly long relationship over this. This is really neat. Now, I think I am going to talk to you about the sling attachment for the Kel-Tec, and the Browning grips. I'm in. I'm really excited about this.
Awesome. I'm glad. Yeah, we can definitely do that.
We had discussed earlier, you kind of got oh geez, that went fast. Everybody, thanks a lot for listening. This has been Alan Morgan with Innovum.com, www.innovaum.com. Go check him out. Everybody, thanks a lot. Jules, you rock. Thank you for your help. Everybody, UCY.TV, stick around. More great stuff coming up. Y'all do what the song says. Buy a gun.